Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Den. And today we're going to talk about lowball offers. Can they really help you as a buyer, or can they hurt you?
The Den, powered by the Lyons Group, a show that explores trending topics in real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. We're a small team of professionals with over $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 successful transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Here's a refreshing look at real estate happenings and more. Welcome to The Den.
Let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lyons Group. To my right, Paul, hand me the rock berry. Aspen, the Ninja Groen, is missing today. She's got a flat tire up in Durango. 4 in the last couple of years, but we'll get to that later. And the boss, Shannon Martinez. My name is Ben. Do your offers hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie them in a knot? Hey, you remember?
We've got a new name for you. Take 10. Take 10 Lyons.
Hey, you remember that song? Did you used to sing that song in elementary?
Course.
Yeah. I think it was Arms. Did you remember singing that?
It's funny. It was Arms. No, it was Ears. We had somebody try to do that marching in the Marine Corps. And I remember everybody just stopped. Like, that is not what we're going to be doing.
It's not what we had in mind today.
Hard chargers, do your ears hang low? No.
Yeah. Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie them in a knot? Can you tie them in a bow? I digress. But today we're going to be talking about lowball offers. And if they do go low, can you tie them in a knot? Can you tie them in a bow? Do they really help you?
They're not a gift.
They're not. Yeah, they are not a gift. Shannon, it's an interesting time in the market right now. We have a lot of sellers, kind of a disconnect. There's a lot of sellers that are still feeling like it's a true seller's market. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a seller's market. I'm just saying that there's a lot of sellers out there that have expectations that are different than the reality of the market we're in. And we have buyers that are like, ooh, I can get a deal right now because things are starting to slow down a bit. But there is a disconnect. There's that area in between, the space in between. And that's where the trouble lies. Lowball offers, we're starting to see them. What do you think? Are they effective? And can they help you as a buyer? Shed some thoughts on how you think a lowball offer would help as a buyer.
I'm not sure it's very helpful, honestly. I think that in some markets it can be. Maybe when our market had crashed, 10 or more years ago, and houses had been on the market, maybe you had something on the market for a year, and then they were just happy to see something. But in our market right now, we're really looking at, instead of having multiple offers right out the gate, we're looking at more having a 3-month, 4-month wait on the market. I think to most sellers, that's not worth just eating into all their equity unless they're seriously desperate. I think there's a lot of that. So I think that in times they can be helpful. I don't think in this market it's necessarily helpful. I think sellers still have a bit of an advantage, and I don't think that they are that terribly desperate. I think the downfall to doing that, and this isn't every case. I mean, if you're talking about a foreclosure and it's in really bad repair and it really needs a lot and you're being really thoughtful about your offer and you know that that's what it's worth, that's one thing. But looking at a home, maybe it hit the market a week ago and you want to come in and offer $50,000 less off of it. Chances are the seller's not going to even entertain that, first of all. But also, even if they did and they responded and they came right back where they're at or close to it, even if you came to an agreement, you've almost already set the tone for how you're going to behave with them. And a lot of times those sellers feel like, they're just out for anything they want. So then you come along a few weeks later with your objections to your home inspection and they have the same bad taste in their mouth that they're just coming after everything. They're just going to throw everything they can out there. I think that we're better off when we negotiate in good faith, when we say, I really think this is what this property's worth. Or maybe if you have a broker that can call ahead and say, hey, look, I know it's newer and I know this is lower than what the seller wants. My buyers have really thought a lot about this. This is where it makes sense to them. That softens it a little bit. But I think sometimes people get these expectations after watching these online, they watch these shows, they watch all these home shows and they think, well, they're asking $600,000. I'm going to go in at $320 and I'll probably get it at $400,000. You're not. You're just not. That's not the reality of the market. But what you're doing is you're putting up a brick wall right in front of their face. Hey, I am not one you can negotiate with. I'm unreasonable is what you're telling them. That's how I feel. That's what I see most of the time.
So ultimately, you think because of that brick wall that people put up by coming in so low, that it doesn't motivate the seller to move the needle at all?
No.
That's what you're saying. And a lot of it is about the presentation of the offer.
Exactly.
If there's some reason, some causality to this is why we're at this price point. Let's say there's some serious structural issues or some.
Then at least if the seller doesn't go for it, the seller may understand the point and say, well, I get your point, but we just can't do that. But say the house does sit there for 3 or 4 months and the seller might start saying, you know what, we've had a couple of lower offers and we've really thought about it. And now these things make sense. And then now at least the door's open to them coming back. If you've already offended them, chances are they're not going to circle back around in a couple of months and say, are your buyers still interested in that? Because we've seen that before. Mm-hmm. We've seen that where you can't come to terms, but maybe after a little while, you get that phone call and say, hey, are your buyers still out there and looking? Because, my sellers are getting closer to that point now.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that if they just think you're unreasonable.
Yeah, completely unreasonable. Yeah. Paul, what are your thoughts? Can lowball offers hurt you as a buyer? Why or why not?
Well, I hate lowball offers. And when I deal with sellers, I always present all offers the same way. But when you present an offer and you get either swearing, cussing, or laughing back at you, you know that the buyer is not helped at all. And probably, I've had this conversation. If they come back with another one, would you entertain that offer? And if it's insulting enough, they usually say no. Just tell them thanks, but no thanks. Now there are opportunities for like foreclosures, short sales, those type of things where I think lowball offers could be appropriate. But I don't think. When you think about a lowball offer, you're taking the equity away from the seller who has an asset they're going to do something else with. All of this stuff. Why would they give away all of their equity to you because you really want it?
Exactly.
And then you get a lowball offer majority of the time. Then you get like you were saying, you get objections later on. You're like, I already gave you everything I had to give.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think you can come back and ask for more? But if they do it nuanced, like you were saying, and say, we've already looked at everything. This is where we think it should be priced based on what it's worth, what needs to be done, and this will be our offer. We're going to be very easy coming from here on out. Mm-hmm. We're kind of saying we're going to accept it at this price as is, Then a lowball offer could help, but majority of the time, no.
But I agree with you, Paul. A lot of it is the presentation.
Yeah.
It really is. If we walk in and I say, well, I've got an offer, but you're not going to want to see it. I've got an offer, but these people are ridiculous. I'm still going to come in and say, hey, good news is we have an offer. It's not where we want to be, but it's a starting place. Let's see what we can do with it. And then I always try to tell people, don't be offended. Somebody's actually interested in your property. If you can't meet them somewhere along here, just come back where you can. You don't need to laugh in their face. You don't need to walk away because sometimes they're just maybe a little bit ignorant to how the process works. They've watched too many programs. And they're coming in doing this thinking they're going to get somewhere. They may not even really feel this way. So don't make it personal. Make it a business decision. You don't have to meet them there. Just come back where you're at and take the emotion out of it.
Hi, this is Aspen Groen. I'm a partner at the Lyons Group. We're dedicated to making your real estate experience the best it can be. If you're looking to buy or sell, go to sjcbroker.com and watch our informational video series. These videos break down the process and shed some light on buying or selling. While you're there, schedule a private consultation with one of our partners. We'd love to sit down, talk strategy, and give you a real advantage in today's market. You deserve the best, so take those steps, and we'll see you soon. Now back to the show.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you see the lowball offers, it's usually an untrained either buyer or realtor that's
or
working
broker.
with them.
Exactly.
Because what happens in a lowball, or the untrained people will say, I've got to put everything, every line that I can fill in needs to be in my client's favor.
Right.
And then that really becomes, it's just like a bunch of jabs at the seller.
And we've talked about this before. We've had podcasts where we've talked about this before about it. There is a need. It is a mutual agreement and it has to work for both parties. If one party is just completely strong-armed and not getting anything out of the deal, what is their motivation to cooperate with you? There's none. In a desperate market, you have that option. but we're not in a desperate market, even though it's shifting, even though it's cooling a little bit right now. It's a temporary lull. And I don't have one seller that says, yeah, I'd give up, $80,000 to get it sold today instead of in 3 months from now. Most people would not.
Nobody would. But I do think like when I get in the market and there's 800 homes out there, they'd be like, I've got to move. I'm moving. I've got to do something here. I'll accept 50,000 less.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, they still got to pay the bill.
Yeah.
They can't drop it so low that they're coming to the table with money. It doesn't make sense to sell then.
I think the real important thing to remember is everybody's going to ask for something. Unless you're in a multiple offer situation, it's brand new on the market. There's 3 competing offers. Don't ask them for anything. If that's not the case, even if it's been on the market 30 days, 60 days, ask for something. Absolutely. I always encourage people, throw something out there, ask for something, whether you're going to ask for some allowances or you're going to ask for, 10,000 off, you're going to, whatever it is that you think you need to do. You should always be thinking about what you can ask that seller for. But again, you have to remember in the back of your head that it is a two-way street. It has to work for everybody. Yeah, if it's completely loaded to just benefit the buyer, nobody's looking to give their property to you. And that's what people sometimes don't even think about,
And one of the other things too is no matter what the market is or what kind of house it is, if it's brand new on the market, nobody's going to give up all their money right away.
No.
They're going to wait for a while to see what the market does.
That's right. Even if they wait 3 weeks and they say, okay, we haven't had many showings and many bites, we're ready to do a price reduction. But nobody's usually nobody does that right out the gate. Just says, I'd give up. I'll give something up right away.
And I love the buyers that say, I wouldn't pay more than this for this house. And you're like, based on what? Well, just because that's I won't. And you just say, well, this house isn't for you then.
And I try to explain to people, that seller is selling in our current market for market value. And we may have differences of what we think that is, but I don't like people that do that kind of stuff. Well, our budget's only this. That's not the seller's problem,
They'll never get that price. Like, well,
that's
you,
not your problem. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of green grass between where a lowball offer is and where the seller's asking their asking price is. So I always explain to the buyers, I always say, look, if the seller's asking $350 and you're at $275, they can drop to $325 and see how the market responds. They could drop to $315 and see how the market responds.
They had a long way to go before they get there.
Of green grass between where you're at and where they're at. Now, having said that, a lot of buyers say, "Hey, I want to anchor a price point at $275, and then try to negotiate from there." And that's
to find their bottom.
Yeah, to find the bottom. Now, speak to that a little bit. Why do you have to be careful with that? Where you anchor with a seller because of the perception component. If you try to anchor too low, what happens? What do you see with your sellers when you get a lowball offer like that?
With the sellers?
Yeah.
I see anytime I get a lowball offer, it's almost like, well, let's raise the price. Not the offer price. Let's raise the list price. I'm so offended by this. Let's go the other way.
Yeah.
Or now you're going to pay my realtor fees. You're going to start I'm going to start getting stuff from you because I'm so insulted.
Yeah.
So I don't think, if you say I'm going to try to pull or see how low I can get them or see if they'll come off at all, you can't start super low. I mean, there's a spot. There's a sweet spot. If you go way too low, you're just going to send them the wrong way.
Yeah, and that's what I tell a lot of buyers too. And correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, if you talk to your buyers like this, but I always say, look, there's a fine line between a good, solid, low offer and offending someone. And if you offend someone, you're not able to draw out their bottom dollar. That's the whole point of the negotiation, is to draw out their bottom dollar. But if you offend them, immediately you have the wall that goes up. Immediately you have a seller going, well, I want to go up on the price, or I want to jab back. But if you can justify a good, solid, low offer and then kind of hold tight to that, is that more of a situation where you see buyers get better deals?
Yeah, absolutely. Buyers get better deals. If you're going to ask for something off, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we've had just recently a very nice home on the market. We had several offers on it. Sellers really weren't willing to budge. Another buyer came in, and it was as low or maybe a little bit lower with a few concessions. And they had been there long enough and gotten enough that they were like, okay, this is probably where we're going to be at and what we're going to do. But those people before that, they didn't get a chance with them. Mm-hmm. They didn't get a chance with them. So I think that if you're a little bit more giving, and realize, I think sometimes buyers don't realize, they're looking for the best deal. They're not realizing, you're taking an offer to somebody on the place where they brought their kids home to, where they spent their Christmases at. It's very emotional to them. And I'm not saying that you have to pay for that emotion, but take that into consideration when you're making that offer and you're trying to just rip their head off. What's their motivation? What would their motivation be? Unless they are desperate, unless they, we've got a job offer in another place and we got to move in 30 days or we lose this or that, or, there are some pinch points sometimes that you find where people have to negotiate a little bit more. But overall, people just don't have to do that much for you.
Yeah.
Well, I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I think too, I think the goal of the lowball offer is to bring the seller down, and then a negotiation tactic is to meet in the middle.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of time, if you get a good lowball offer, you can already see how this is going to go. Like you get an offer that's 20,000 low. Like, well, you come up 10, we'll go down 10.
Yeah.
And
Split
we'll make
the
this
difference.
work.
It's not that far off.
But when you're trying to ask somebody to come down $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 within the first week, you're not going to get it.
They at least want to fill out the market.
Yeah.
Like they at least, if they've been on the market 6 months, that may be a different story to be able to be that ambitious. And you can see that they haven't done any price reductions. But if you can see they've been on the market for 2 weeks and they lowered it $10,000 in the first 2 weeks, they probably got a little bit of feedback. And now you want to come in and ask for another 50 off of that. Yeah. Chances are they're just going to say no.
Well, the other thing too that I see a lot is the hidden lowball offer. You get full price. But
the whole list of things,
costs, you're paying their realtor, you're paying an allowance, you're doing, all of these things, and then they hit you big time with repairs. I mean, I always tell the sellers, I go, well, let's figure out what this looks like, what you're walking away with.
That's usually a better way for a buyer to do it anyway, in all honesty.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, because, for that, it's slow walks, but at least that seller feels like they're getting their price. Because sometimes, even if they know they have to negotiate and they figure, oh, we didn't think we would get a full price offer, we did get one. Well, you didn't, because you just paid, $8,000 in their closing costs and you bought them a home warranty and they're still going to ask for a couple of repairs and, but they feel good about it. Sometimes it really is about a mindset and how you present things to people. It's like if I walk up and I just say, Paul, you look fabulous today and I like your new haircut, you're going to be like, awesome. But if I walk up and I just say, I see you got your haircut, and I walk off, you're going to be like, what does that mean? Yeah. Like, I'm offended. Yeah. And I may not have meant it offensively, So I think that, it's really about the presentation. It's about the presentation.
A lot of it is the presentation.
How are you going to package that?
And then a chunk of it is actually what is in the
meats
offer,
and bones of it. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because you get some buyers that are like, and I love, I have a good friend of mine, Dr. G.K. Nelson, who's a retired professor at the University of Washington, and we always discuss BATNA, your best alternative to negotiating an agreement. And if you're in negotiations, you need to understand what your BATNA is. In a lot of instances, my BATNA is, hey, I want to buy that house, but my best alternative to negotiating this agreement with this seller is that I go back to my old house. And that's not a bad deal. And so when you're in a situation like that, you are afforded a little bit more luxury to be able to be a little bit pickier. You can walk away from deals or transactions. You need to understand your BATNA. However, that does not give you the green card to walk around punching sellers in the face with lowball offers. And how does that affect you as a professional, a realtor, when you have a client that just goes from one thing to the next, lowballing offers? Paul, can you speak to this?
I've had numerous. I've become I've had the question asked to me, is this that lowball guy? And I say, yep, I'm not naming any names.
He's back.
Yep.
But yeah, you can get a stigma just like a house. And you got to pick who you work with, because investors do this a lot. There are some people that think that the used car salesman, we're going to use this tactic, and my job is to get them to say no, or to pull them down off of that price. If you're always giving bad offers, people don't want to work with you. I like getting bad offers because I can use some negotiating skills and see if there's something there. But in the presentation, it's always, what are your options here? Because you can get a horrible lowball offer and you say, well, look, you take this one out and this one out, and you're pretty close to where you want it to be.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too to listen to your broker. Like if you as a buyer or as a seller, listen to your broker. Typically, we have our thumb on the pulse. We know where the market's at, and it's easy for us to say, look, I know this is pretty low, but this is where my market analysis came in, and they're looking at the same stats that we looked at, that we talked about before.
Yep.
So, I know we've tried it here. We haven't gotten anything. We got an offer 2 months in, and it's exactly where I thought it was going to be. You can pass this up, but chances are this is just going to be the continuation. And now that seller has said, okay, great. I've tried it my way. I've seen it for myself. I understand this is the best I'm going to do, and I feel good now about what I'm doing. But it's the same with the buyer side. If your broker is telling you, look, I know there's 2 other offers, it's been on the market for 3 days, do you really want this property? And if they say it's everything that I've ever wanted, okay, then listen to your broker. We're going in strong. If they go, no, but I'd just like to see if they'd take it. Well, okay. Then risk it, but listen to what those professionals have to say.
Then you become that broker, though, that they're like, oh, here comes another offer from Shannon. Like, here we go.
They do that anyway already.
One of the things that I do with my sellers is I'll talk about the types of offers that'll come in. And like in this price range, we usually get the 3% closing cost assistant ask.
Absolutely.
Because this is a prime VA, FHA, MFA property.
And if they already know that when they're taking the listing.
I told you.
Yeah, that's right. They've got it in their head. Instead of getting the offer and saying, well, they just asked me for like $5,000 off. Well, remember, we talked about your most likely buyer is going to be XYZ, and this is what they're going to want.
And then you start talking about commissions. You say, hey, look, they may ask for, you got some issues on the roof. They may ask for a roofing allowance, flooring allowance, those types of things. And if you've already said it out loud, then the offer doesn't look as bad. I go, I told you about this. So this is the type of offer we're going to be getting. And you can almost turn a lowball offer into an acceptable offer because you've discussed it.
Well, a lot of that comes down to the prepping of your clients, the not controlling, but the tampering of expectations, right? Trying to help control expectations of your client, whether it's a buyer or seller. I mean, a buyer coming in, look, man, I can just get $100,000 off of this. Well, it's highly, highly unlikely. And here's the reasons why. And this does not behoove you, because if you do offend them and you do really like this home and you put that wall up, then all of a sudden trying to come back in a few weeks if this property is still available is not going to draw out their bottom dollar, because now they're mad at you. Now that doesn't make sense. Now a lowball
they're going to make you pay a little bit more.
And in this market too, I mean, a lot of people ask, how long is it going to take to sell? Can this sell fast? Could I get them to come off that price? In some markets, you can go, sure, I think you could. It's been on long enough. You could lowball them. Nowadays, it's like, who knows? We'll have a house that should have sold day one that sits for a year. Or we could have a house with no flooring, like I've sold before, that's get 2 cash offers in the first 3 hours.
Right.
You're like, it doesn't make any sense. In this market, it's even weirder.
Yeah.
We're
in a strange place right now where we can't always give a definite how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, we cannot predict that, because you said earlier it's sort of a seller's market. All the data shows that it's still a seller's market.
But it sure doesn't feel like a seller's market.
I think the trajectory is towards more of the buyer's market, but more of an equilibrium market.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense.
A balanced market.
More of a balanced market. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everybody's hurting. So it's pain across the board.
That's right. Everyone feels it.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately for these talking purposes is, if you're a buyer and you're on the fence and you're thinking about making an offer, in a smaller community, especially in a smaller town, you can gain a reputation really quick of throwing out offensive offers. And that could hurt you. I mean, tell me that it can't, but it can hurt you. I think it's more likely that it will hurt you than it will help you. So be very strategic with your offers if you're going to come in low, to put yourself in the best position to get the best deal. That's the goal, not to just lowball somebody. Paul?
I think being mindful of the other side actually helps you when you're doing a lowball offer. Like if you're going to go out there to try to get the best deal, you have to think about them first.
Right.
Not just you. Because
exactly.
if you start thinking about them first and all of their pinch points and their levers that they need to have, you start asking questions first. Are they moving? Is it a job thing? Do they have to do this? So you start leveraging those things before you even put the offer in. That sometimes solidifies the ability to do the lowball offer. But if you're just, you see a house pop up and you go, it's a $300,000 house. Okay, 180.
Right.
That's stupid. I mean, that's never going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Some people do that, but if you actually think about the seller and all of their stuff first, lowball offers are.
That's what I really appreciate. Have you ever had a broker like reach out to you and say, hey, I'm putting together an offer. Is there anything your seller needs?
Yeah.
I love that. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They would like a longer closing date because they've got these issues going on. Or yes, they do. They need a post-occupancy. Or yes, they do. They need, whatever it is. I love that.
I do that all the time.
Find out what they need.
What's the deal breaker here?
Yeah.
Is it money? Is it time? Is it stress? All of those things.
Yeah.
And if you could take the stress, because that's the biggest thing. If you put a lowball offer and you're not taking any stress, you're just putting more stress on them. But if you put in a lowball offer and then say, but this is going to be stress-free for you, it could work.
Yeah. It helps you're just being strategic. You're going from a lowball offer to being a strategic low offer.
Right.
And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
But there's a fine line.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right.
I like that point.
Yeah.
That's
you really have
a
to.
a lowball offer, you're a scumbag.
Yeah.
A low offer is strategic.
Yeah. That's right.
Then you're someone they can work with. If
That's
it's
right.
just low. Now you're someone they can work with.
And it is a fine line. And that's why you need a realtor to help navigate those channels. You need someone to say, man, I really feel like you've just crossed the line and your offer is offensive. You can offer whatever you want. I mean, ultimately the client has, the say to that, but gosh, listen to your broker, listen to the realtor that you're working with, because they're going to be able to tell you, look, this just doesn't play right. You can do it, but it's not going to help you. And that's the whole point. We're trying to help you. Like, what's the Jerry Maguire? Help me help you.
Exactly.
Help me help you achieve your goals.
Well, and then when brokers work together on these lowball offers, you say, hey, let's see if we can come close to terms here.
Yeah.
Before we put it all down on paper. Let's negotiate this, and then if something happens, then we put it on paper. That's what you're talking about when they ask, what does the seller need? I'll say, let's not go for the formal offer yet. Let's see if we can even get.
So what you're saying is close works with hand grenades, alligators, and lowball offers.
That's right.
You heard it here first on the Den. Well, a fascinating conversation on lowball offers and if they actually help you as a buyer. And hopefully you gleaned some good information here that it could certainly hurt you if it's not approached correctly. There is a fine line to making a good, solid low offer that isn't in the lowball category, but pretty close, that could actually put everything in your favor if it's done right. So seek the knowledge of a broker, your realtor, ask them the questions, take the steps, seek to understand the client's position on the other side, ask those questions to get yourself in the best position you can. If you are going to come in low on an offer price, understand your levers and the implications that offer may have. So great conversation. Thank you for that, everybody. If you like our content.
You didn't know where that was ending.
I didn't even know where I was just rambling there. If you like our content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, you can go to our Facebook page. We put out a fantastic newsletter every week. Thank you, Paul, for that. Great information. You want to see that information because it keeps you in tune with the market. But also you can go to sjcbroker.com and schedule a private consultation with any one of us here at the Lyons Group. We'd love to sit down with you, whether you're buying or selling, and give you an advantage in today's market. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den, powered by the Lyons Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed and check the show notes below for direct links to our buyer and seller video series. The Buyer and Seller video series can give you an inside track on taking the right steps in real estate. If you'd like to learn more about the Lyons Group or to schedule a consultation, go to sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lyons Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in the Den.